Hi everyone, Nicole Archer here. We are getting ready to jump into chapter 2 of John Maxwell's The 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. And we are on page 16. Let's go ahead and get started. The Law of Awareness. You must know yourself to grow yourself. No one can produce great things who is not thoroughly sincere in dealing with himself. James Russell Lowell. In 2004, Adam Sandler and Drew Barrymore starred in a comedy called 50 First Dates. It is the story of a man who falls in love with a young woman, only to discover that she cannot remember him the next day. In fact, she can't remember anything that's happened to her since a car crash she was in a year before. She's destined to live every day as if it were the day before her accident. It was a cute movie, even if the premise seems a bit silly. But what if something like that were true and had actually happened? No recall. There's a famous neuropsychology case of someone with a similar condition that was first documented in 1957 and has been studied by thousands of doctors and researchers. The patient is called Henry M. He was born in Hartford, Connecticut in 1926 and suffered from a case of epilepsy that was so severe and debilitating that he couldn't function. At age 27, he underwent an experimental surgery in which parts of his brain were removed to try to treat his epilepsy. The good news was that after the surgery, he no longer suffered constant debilitating seizures. In addition, he suffered no negative impact on his intelligence, personality, or ability to interact with others socially. However, there was one horrible side effect. He seemed to have no short-term memory. Henry M. couldn't remember anything that happened after the surgery. He didn't recognize his doctors. He couldn't find his way to the bathroom. When he returned home, he would do the same jigsaw puzzles every day and read the same magazines without having any memory of having done so. When his family moved to a new house, he could never remember having moved, nor could he find his way to his new home, though he remembered his old one vividly. When interviewed 30 minutes after lunch, he could not recall a single item he'd eaten. In fact, he could not remember having eaten at all. He was stuck in time, unable to learn, grow, and change. What a tragedy. Do you have a sense of direction? Any person who wants to grow but doesn't know himself is in many ways like Henry M. To grow, you must know yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, your interests, and opportunities. You must be able to gauge not only where you've been, but also where you are now. Otherwise, you cannot set course for where you want to go. And of course, every time you want to learn something, you must be able to take the new thing you've learned today and build upon what you learned yesterday to keep growing. That's the only way to gain traction and keep improving yourself. To reach your potential, you must know where you want to go and where you currently are. Without both of those pieces of information, you're liable to get lost. Knowing yourself is like reading. You are here on a map when you're trying to find your way to a destination. I've observed that there are really only 3 kinds of people when it comes to having direction in life. Number 1, people who don't know what they would like to do. These people are often confused. They lack a strong sense of purpose. They don't possess a sense of direction for their lives. If they are growing, they are unfocused about it. They dabble. They drift. They can't reach their potential because they have no idea what to shoot for. Number 2, people who know what they would like to do but don't do it. These people are usually frustrated. Every day they experience the gap between where they are and where they want to be. Sometimes they aren't doing what they want because they worry it will cause them to neglect other responsibilities, such as providing for their families. Sometimes they aren't willing to pay the price to learn, grow, and move closer to where they want to be. Other times, fear prevents them from changing course to pursue their passion. No matter what the reason, they too miss their potential. And number 3, people who know what they'd like to do and do it. The third kind of people know themselves, possess a strong sense of passion, and are focused in purpose, grow in areas that help them move closer to their purpose, and do what they were created to do. The word that best describes them is fulfilled. Few situations are as extreme as Henry M's. Yet most people seem to fall into this category. They don't know what they want to do. I believe the main reason is they don't know themselves as well as they should, and thus remain unfocused in their growth. Knowing yourself isn't necessarily an easy thing for everyone to do. In a commencement address at Princeton, future American President Woodrow Wilson proclaimed, "We live in an age disturbed, confused, bewildered, afraid of its own forces, in search not merely of its road, but even of its direction. There are many voices of counsel, but few voices of vision. There is much excitement and feverish activity, but little concern of thoughtful purpose. We're distressed by our ungoverned, undirected energies and do many things, but nothing long. It's our duty to find ourselves." Wilson made that statement in 1907. Imagine what he might have said if he were alive today. What makes finding themselves and growing to their potential difficult for some people is that it can be a bit of a catch-22. You have to know who you are to grow your potential, but you have to grow in order to know who you are. So what's the solution? Explore yourself as you explore growth. The best way to start is to pay attention to your passions. For me, that started when I focused my growth in areas that I knew would help me as a minister, which was my passion. The 4 areas can be represented by the word real: relationships, equipping, attitude, and leadership. My passion led to my growth, but then my growth led to my passion. As I discovered my love and ability for leadership, that has continued to be a major focus of my personal growth for nearly 40 years. Other areas that passion and purpose revealed include faith, family, communication, and creativity. All of these continue to be important parts of my life when I love to learn and grow. How to find your passion and purpose. Psychotherapist Nathaniel Braden asserts, the first step towards change is awareness. The second step is acceptance. If you want to change and grow, then you must know yourself and accept who you are before you can start building. Here are 10 questions to help you start working through that process. Number 1. Do you like what you're doing now? I'm amazed by how many people I meet every day who don't like what they're doing for a living. Why do they do it? I understand the necessity of having to make a living. We've all done jobs we didn't love. I worked in a meatpacking plant when I was in college. I didn't like that job. But I didn't stay there my whole life, doing something I found unfulfilling. If I loved it and it had fit my passion and purpose, I would have stayed there and tried to build a career. But it wasn't what I wanted to do. Philosopher Abraham Kaplan noted, if, as Socrates said, the unexamined life is not worth living, so the unlived life is worth examining. If you're not enjoying what you do for a living, you need to take some time to examine why. Is it a risk making a change from what you're currently doing to what you want to do? Of course. You might fail. You might find out that you don't like it as much as you expected. You might not make as much money. But isn't there also great risk in staying where you are? You might fail. You might get fired. You might take a pay cut. Or worst of all, you might come to the end of your life feeling regret for never having reached your potential or doing what you love. Which risk would you rather live with? Number 2, what would you like to do? There is definitely a direct connection between finding your passion and reaching your potential. TV journalist Maria Bartiromo says, every successful person I've met has a strong sense of his or her unique abilities and aspirations. They're leaders in their own lives, and they dare to pursue their dreams on their own terms. Have you found and harnessed your passion? Do you know what you would like to do? When you do, it makes all the difference. Why? When you tap into your passion, it gives you the E&E factor, energy and excellence. You will never fulfill your destiny doing work you despise. Passion gives you an advantage over others because one person with great passion is greater than 99 who only have an interest. Passion gives you energy. As a kid, all I ever wanted to do was play. I didn't like work, but I learned the power of tapping into my passion when I transitioned from high school to college. In high school, I was simply marking time. But when I got to college, I was working in areas connected to my purpose. I was pursuing my passion. That got me excited. I'm still excited about what I do. Now that I'm in my mid-60s, people ask me when I will retire. To be honest, that's not on my radar. Why would anyone want to quit doing what he loves? Nothing's work unless you'd rather be doing something else. Want to know when I'll retire? When I die. That's when I'll stop speaking and writing books. How do you know what you want to do? How do you tap into your passion? Listen to your heart. Pay attention to what you love doing. Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and author Thomas L. Friedman advises, so whatever you plan to do, whether you plan to travel the world next year, go to graduate school, join the workforce, or take some time off to think, don't just listen to your head. Listen to your heart. It's the best career counselor there is. Do what you really love to do, and if you don't quite know what that is yet, well, keep searching, because if you find it, you'll bring that something extra to your work that will help ensure you'll not be automated or outsourced. It will help make you an untouchable radiologist, an untouchable engineer, or an untouchable teacher. If you never figure out what you want to do, you'll probably be frustrated all your life. Author Stephen Covey observed, how different our lives are when we really know what is deeply important to us, and keeping that picture in mind, we manage ourselves each day to be and know what matters most. Knowing yourself and what you want to do is one of the most important things you'll ever do in this life. Number 3, can you do what you'd like to do? When I was a minister, I once had a young man named Bobby working for me. He was my worship leader. If you're unfamiliar with that role, it's the person who prepares the music for a Sunday service, leads the other singers and musicians, and actually leads the congregation in singing. I could see that Bobby was an unhappy person, and I suspected that he would rather be doing something different. So one day I sat him down for a heart-to-heart talk. He confessed that he was really unhappy. I asked him, "Bobby, what would you like to do?" He hesitated a moment and then confided, "I'd really like to be the announcer for the Chicago Cubs baseball team." All I could think was, "You're going to be unhappy for a very long time." He didn't have the skills to do that job. Even if he did, the job wasn't available. I told him he needed to find something more realistic that aligned with his gifting and opportunities. There's a big difference between having a dream that propels you to achieve and pulling an idea out of thin air that has no connection with who you are and what you can do. I feel so strongly about helping people with this problem that I wrote a book about it called Put Your Dream to the Test. You must have some kind of criteria for knowing if the desire you have matches the abilities you possess. Warren Bennis has also developed something to help people with this issue. He offers 3 questions that you can ask yourself to identify if what you want to do is possible. Ask yourself, do you know the difference between what you want and what you're good at? These 2 things don't always match up. I believe that was the case for Bobby. What he wanted and what he could do were 2 very different things. To be successful, you need to be doing what you're good at. Do you know what drives you and what gives you satisfaction? Sometimes people get it in their heads to do something for the wrong reasons. Maybe the job they want doesn't look like hard work, when in fact it is. Or they want the rewards that come with the job, but not the work itself. When what motivates you lines up with what satisfies you, it's a powerful combination. Do you know what your values and priorities are, and what your organization's values and priorities are? The more you can align these 2, the greater your chance of success. If you and your employer are working at cross purposes, success will be difficult to achieve. Measuring the differences between what you want and what you're able to do, what drives you and what satisfies you, and your values and those of the organization reveals many of the obstacles between you and what you want to do. At that point, the question you need to ask yourself is whether you're able to overcome those difficulties. One of the main keys to being successful and fulfilling your purpose is to understand your unique talents and to find the right arena in which to use them. Some people have an inherent ability to know who they are and who they're not. Others have to work hard to make those discoveries. Poet and critic Samuel Johnson observed, "Almost every man wastes part of his life in attempts to display qualities which he does not possess. Your goal should be to waste as little of your time as possible." As former MLB catcher Jim Sundberg said, "Discover your uniqueness, then discipline yourself to develop it." Number 4, do you know why you want to do what you'd like to do? I believe it's very important not only to know what you want to do, but also why you want to do it. I say that because motives matter. When you do things for the right reason, it gives you inner strength when things go wrong. Right motives help you to build positive relationships because they prevent hidden agendas and incline you to put people ahead of your agenda. Doing something for the right reasons also keeps life less cluttered and your path clearer. Not only is your vision clearer, but you also sleep well at night knowing you're on the right track. The work that I do is a calling on my life. When I lead or communicate, I think, I was born for this. It relies on my strengths. It gives me energy. It makes a difference in the lives of others. It fulfills me and gives me a touch of the eternal. I believe you can have the same kind of satisfaction and experience success if you do the things you were meant to do and do them for the right reasons. Take time to reflect. Explore your intentions and attitudes. As psychiatrist Carl Jung advised, your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. The first 4 questions you should ask yourself relate to what you want to do. As I said at the beginning of this chapter, you must know yourself to grow yourself. That's the law of awareness. But I want to help you do more than just know what you want to do. I want you to have a sense of how to start moving in that direction. That will help you to target and eventually fine-tune your growth. With that in mind, the remaining questions will help you create a game plan. Number 5. Do you know what to do so you can do what you want to do? To move from what you're doing now to what you want to do is a process. Do you know what it will take? I believe it begins with awareness. Darren Hardy, the publisher of Success Magazine, says, "Picture where you are in any area right now. Now picture where you want to be. Richer, thinner, happier, you name it. The first step toward change is awareness. If you want to get from where you are to where you want to be, you have to start by becoming aware of the choices that led you away from the desired location. Become very conscious of every choice you make today so you can begin to make smarter choices moving forward. You cannot change direction if you aren't aware that you're not headed where you want to go. That probably sounds obvious, but have you taken the time to look at what your current situations and activities are taking you? Spend some time really thinking about where you're presently headed. If it's not where you want to go, then write out what steps you need to take to go where you desire to go, to do what you want to do. Make them as tangible as possible. Will they definitely be the right steps? Maybe not, but you won't know for sure until you start moving forward. And that takes us to the next phase. Action. You cannot win if you do not begin. The people who get ahead in the world are the ones who look for the circumstances they want, and if they can't find them, they make them. That means taking initiative. It means doing something specific every day that will take you another step closer to your goal. It means continuing to do it every day. Nearly all successes are the fruit of initiative. Accountability. Few things prompt a person to follow through like accountability. One of the ways you can do that is to make your goals public. When you tell others about what you intend to do, it puts pressure on you to keep working at it. You can request that specific individuals ask you about your progress. It's similar to having a deadline to keep you moving. You can even write things down as a form of accountability. That's what Darren Hardy suggests. He says you should track every action that pertains to an area where you want to see improvement, whether it relates to finances, health, career, or relationships. Simply carry around a small notebook, something you'll keep in your pocket or purse at all times, and a writing instrument, says Hardy. You're going to write it all down, every day, without fail. No excuses, no exceptions. As if Big Brother's watching you. Doesn't sound like much fun, I know, writing things down on a little piece of paper. But tracking my progress and missteps is one of the reasons I've accumulated the success I have. The process forces you to be conscious of your decisions. Attraction. If you become aware of the steps you must take to do what you want to do, take action, and become accountable for following through, you'll begin to produce the behavior you desire, and you'll start getting closer to doing what you want to do. And that will start to result in a positive side effect. You'll start attracting like-minded people. The law of magnetism and the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership says, who you are is who you attract. That is true in leadership, but it's also true in every other aspect of life. As my mother used to say, birds of a feather flock together. If you want to be around growing people, become a growing person. If you're committed, you attract others who are committed. If you're growing, you attract others who are growing. This puts you in a position to begin building a community of like-minded people who can help one another succeed. Number 6. Do you know people who do what you'd like to do? My greatest growth has always come as a result of finding people ahead of me who were able to show me the way forward. Some of them have helped me through personal contact, but most have helped me through the books they've written. When I've had questions, I found answers in their wisdom. When I wanted to learn how to lead better, I looked to Melvin Maxwell, Bill Hybels, John Wooden, and Oswald Sanders, and Jesus Christ, and hundreds of others to show me the way. If I've learned how to communicate more effectively, it's because I've learned from Andy Stanley, Johnny Carson, Howard Hendricks, Ronald Reagan, Billy Graham, and hundreds of others. If I create and write in a way that helps people, it's because Les Stobe, Max Lucado, Charlie Wetzel, Les Parrott, Bob Buford, and others have spent time with me. If you've discovered what you want to do, start finding people who do what you want with excellence. Then do what you must to learn from them. Get committed. Pay people for their time if necessary. Be consistent. Meet purposefully every month with someone who can teach you. Be creative. Start with their books if you can't meet them in person. Be purposeful. Spend 2 hours in preparation for every hour of interaction. Be reflective. Spend 2 hours in reflection for every hour of interaction. Be grateful. These people are gifts to your personal growth. Be sure to let them know. Always remember that you cannot get where you want to go on your own. You'll need help of others to guide you on your way. Number 7. Should you do what you'd like to do with them? If you're someone who's dedicated to personal growth, you'll always be learning from people in many places. Occasionally, you'll have an opportunity to be mentored on an ongoing basis by an individual. Being mentored by someone who is successful in your area of interest has great value, and I'll discuss it more thoroughly in the Law of Modeling chapter. However, I pause now to give you advice as you approach a mentor. If you find a potential mentor, know the following are your responsibility. Possess a teachable spirit. Always be prepared for the time that you get with your mentor. Set the agenda by asking questions. Demonstrate how you've learned from your time together. Be accountable for what you've learned. As someone who has mentored a lot of people, I can tell you that I think what the responsibilities of a mentor are. My responsibility to the people I mentor is to add value. My goal is to always help them to become more than they are, not try to make them something that they're not. These are the areas I focus on: strength, temperament, track record, passion, choices, advice, support, resources and people, game plan, feedback, and encouragement. For each of these areas, think about what specific contribution you can offer to the person you're mentoring. One of these people I've enjoyed investing in is Courtney Macbeth of Norfolk, Virginia. The second time I met with him, he said the following: "Here's what I asked. Here's what you shared. Here's what I did. Now, can I ask more questions?" With someone who follows through like that, my answer is always yes. Every person who can help you is not necessarily the right person to help you. You must pick and choose, and so must they. Your goal should be able to find a fit that's mutually beneficial for both mentor and mentee. Number 8, will you pay the price to do what you want to do? Author and educator James Thom said, "Probably the most honest self-made man ever was the one we heard say, 'I got to the top the hard way, fighting my own laziness and ignorance every step of the way.'" That sure has a lot of truth in it, doesn't it? When it comes to barriers to success, we're usually our own worst enemies. Several years ago, I came across a piece called "Dream Big." It's full of encouraging words, but also captures what it takes to follow your dreams. It says, "If there were ever a time to dare, to make a difference, to embark on something worth doing, it is now. Not for any grand cause necessarily, but for something that tugs at your heart, something that's your aspiration, something that's your dream. You owe it to yourself to make your days here count. Have fun, dig deep, stretch, dream big. Know, though, that things worth doing are seldom easy. There will be good days, and there will be bad days. There will be times when you want to turn around, pack it up, and call it quits. Those times tell you that you're pushing yourself, that you're not afraid to learn by trying." Taking the steps necessary to live your dreams and do what you want will cost you. You will have to work hard. You will have to make sacrifices. You will have to keep learning and growing and changing. Are you willing to pay that price? I certainly hope you are. But know this: most people aren't. Number 9, when can you start doing what you'd like to do? Ask people when they'll do what they want to do, and most will answer they hope to do it someday. Why not now? Because you're not ready? Perhaps you're not. But if you wait until you are, maybe you'll never do it. Most of the accomplishments I've achieved in life, I began to attempt before I was really ready. When I was teaching pastors leadership in 1984 and they asked for ongoing teaching, I wasn't ready to give it to them. But during a conference with 34 people in Jackson, Mississippi, I decided to pass around a legal pad and get the contact information for anyone who wanted to receive a monthly leadership tape. All 34 signed up. Was I ready to start a monthly leadership subscription series? No. Did I start it anyway? Yes. When I needed to raise money to relocate my church, did I know how to do it? No. Did I start to do it anyway? Yes. When I founded Equip to teach leadership to people in countries around the world, did I have a proven strategy to get it done? No. Did we get started anyway? Yes. Nobody ever got ready by waiting. You only get ready by starting. Number 10. What will it be like when you get to do what you would like to do? Because I've had the privilege of doing what I've wanted to do, I want to help you see ahead to what it's like. First, it will be different from what you imagined. I never thought that I would affect as many people as I do. I never knew that life would be so beautiful. I never thought I would want to occasionally withdraw from people to think and write. But I also never anticipated the expectations others would put on me to produce. When you do what you want to do, it will be more difficult than you ever imagined. I had no idea how much time it would take to be effective. I never expected to have such great demands put on my life or to have to keep paying the price to be successful. I also never dreamed that my energy level would go down as much as it has in recent years. Finally, let me tell you this. When you do what you've always wanted to do, it will be better than you've ever imagined. When I started investing in my personal growth, I didn't anticipate a compounding return. For me personally, for the individuals I've mentored, and for my team. And I never dreamed it would be this much fun. Nothing else compares to doing what you were created to do. A few years ago at Exchange, a leadership event I host for executives each year, we were privileged to have Coretta Scott King and Bernice King as two of our speakers. We all sat in the sanctuary at Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta and listened to them tell stories. What the Exchange attendees most wanted to know about was Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech. Bernice told us that there were many speakers scheduled to address the crowd that day on those steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Many of them jockeyed for the best places in speaking order, hoping to get TV time. Bernice's father gave up his time. He didn't care about his place on the docket. All he cared about was getting to communicate with the people. And when he did, it made history. Why? Because he was doing what he was made to do. The next year, the Civil Rights Act was passed in Washington, D.C. King had followed his passion, found his purpose, and as a result, made an impact on the world. People say there are two great days in a person's life: the day you were born and the day you discover why. I want to encourage you to seek what you were put on this earth to do, then pursue it with all your effort. So for the Applying the Law of Awareness to Your Life section, it is found on page 34. And Maxwell says, the questions in this chapter are designed to prompt you to know yourself and get on course to what you're made to do in life. Here's a streamlined version of the questions. Spend a significant amount of time answering them so you have a plan of action to follow when you're done. And then he's got the questions listed out. So go to your book, go to page 34, answer those questions. That is your homework for chapter 2. And if you don't have your book yet and you're listening to me, then go back and write down each question as I say it and answer those questions. That's your homework. We'll catch you for chapter 3.